Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Doug, and for today's video about baseball caps, I wanted to dig into a little bit more information around the manufacturing site and the characteristics of the caps, particularly the New Era 59Fifty. Sitting right in front of me, I've got two caps. One here, this Nationals cap, was a U.S. made, so this is probably originating from New York State at New Era's factory there. And the Royals cap on my right here is actually a made in China cap. And we're going to take a look at four specific characteristics and maybe a fifth that I didn't look into so much with the data. But we're going to just compare and contrast these from what I think to be some of the good quality features that you find on caps. So the Royals cap, one note, this is a little bit surprising because up to this point, when I bought this summer in Kansas City actually, I was under the impression that most of the on-field authentic collection was still made in the U.S. However, this one is made in China. Nonetheless, we'll go ahead and take a look. I will compare a few characteristics starting with these. All right, first feature we're going to look at today is actually something that I think is a key ingredient in comfort, and that is really the treatment of the seam tape underneath here. On some of these, it's almost like they bring the two fabric panels together, and then it's almost like it's folded over. So what it does is it creates this little ridge, and then that translates through the seam tape. So what happens with that is you can get a little bit of that ridge right here under the sweatband. It gets kind of magnified. And what that does is leaves that bright red mark on your forehead, or at least a pressure point on your forehead. So with other caps, like this Royals cap here, the seam tape is very flat. So in some way they've treated that seam between panels very differently, and you can feel the seam tape being very flat, especially in this front area where you get a lot of contact. So in the actual data regarding the seam tape, here's what I found. 100% of the caps coming from Asia in my collection had flat seam tape. It was nice and flat and smooth. And in contrast, none of my on-field authentic collection caps from New Era that originated in the U.S. have flat seam tape. They've all got the ridge that can make it very uncomfortable on your forehead. For the second feature, what we're going to take a look at is back into the same general area, and that would be the sweatband. And a lot of times what I notice is some caps have a very smooth sweatband where it's been stitched evenly with all the panels, etc. And on other occasions, you can get really what amounts to a lot of what I would call irregularities. So maybe it's been bunched up in a certain area, or maybe there's something underneath. Maybe it was poor trim of the fabric. I've got other videos that have looked at that. Maybe it's poor trim of the fabric or buckram here that's folded up under. And the end result is it creates a lot of irregularities under the sweatband. So what we're looking for here is really a nice, smooth, uniform surface, because this is so important for comfort, because this is the one that's in contact with your forehead all day long if you're wearing this. So when it comes to the flat sweatband, both countries of origin seems to have a mixed bag of output. Whether you get one from China or from the U.S. that's made either place, you're probably only get about a 50% chance, or about half of the caps you get are going to have a smooth, flat sweatband without any irregularities that can cause discomfort. The third thing that I'm going to look at is something that has also bothered me with various caps, but I've also got a video on how to take care of it, is that when these two layers of buckram are put into the cap, or bonded with the fabric, a lot of times I believe the logo has already been embroidered into the front two panels. So what you get is when this is pressed together and bonded, laminated, whatever you want to call it, the logo, the shape of the logo actually presses through the buckram a little bit. I can even feel a little bit on this Nationals cap. But anytime you get a translation of that shape, sometimes it creates pressure points again. A lot of these three things that I've mentioned so far are all aimed at comfort on the forehead. Again, we'll just look at that as a characteristic and kind of measure how many caps coming from each place show that better quality where it's just completely flat. When it comes to having a flat logo, this is also a big difference in the data that I noticed. The caps that I had coming from the US, only about a third of the time, they're 29% of the time, were the logos completely flat, where I didn't get read through, I didn't get discomfort from the logo pressing through the buckram. So on the Asia made caps, they were operating at closer to 80% as shown here. So I think overall that plus the seam tape, the logo and the seam tape, it just seems like a little bit better process or more consistent process for both of those areas coming on the made in China or made in Asia caps. I'm really going to look at something that's a little bit more subtle, but it's something that I pay attention to. You can almost see it in these two caps here, and that would be the cap volume. So how much above the visor, how much volume do you have in this, and effectively really how high is the crown? So I believe that when these 6 panels are put together and then wrapped around the sizing and the sweatbands applied, you know, there is some variation in the person that's putting it together for how far down they make that fold to come up and over with the sweatband. So you can see here there's a little bit difference in the height that's not totally related to the curvature in the visor. This Nationals cap has always been one of my higher volume caps. It sits a little higher on the crown on my head. I've got more room in it. Where this Royals cap is what I would consider more to be a normal volume. So I'm going to look for caps that really have what I consider a normal volume. This is kind of a judgment call when I was looking through my collection to decide, is it high, is it normal? So took my best shot at that data as well. So again, with the volume in the crown, again, this is a subjective thing. It's very subtle. But as I paid attention to it and looked at it, had about the same success rate of getting kind of the normal crown volume. This is one of the most manual operations in the assembly and creation of the cap. Just about half again on these, 43 and 53% respectively, but that probably means about half the caps you get are going to be pretty normal, and the other ones might have a little extra volume in the crown. And as the final category, I've had a lot of comments on my videos regarding the overall squareness or boxiness of the corners of the crown here. So again, I've got videos that can show you how to shape the crown a little bit, a couple of different techniques in a couple of my videos, but overall you can almost even see a little bit of that here with the US made cap. You know, I think I have shaped this one a little bit. This one I've definitely shaped. But I'll just make some general observations to that. I didn't collect hat by hat data on that one, but I did look at enough to form a general conclusion, so we'll look at that as well. It was somewhat hard to recollect the way some of these caps came in because I've done some shaping on them. However, I would make the general observation, as many of my viewers have, that most of the caps coming from Asia, whether it's China, Vietnam, etc., have a very square or boxed off crown look, a harder corner at the sides of the crown. So I found that to be true in most cases, and without having the actual numbers to back it up, I think that what you get when you get a US made cap is definitely a softer crown. So all right, so there you have it. That was a rundown of those 4 or 5 characteristics that I was talking about. I'm not sure if any of that was surprising to you, but it was very informative for me to collect that data and relay it to you. So if anything, I think that with an issue like this, it can get a little political with the idea of made in the USA. And I was trying to stay away from the politics of this and really just focus on what the caps were telling me in terms of their build craftsmanship. And if anything, I think this is a message to New Era that really says, hey, it'd be nice if you could be more consistent with your cap manufacturer. I really want to see those same features made at a high level and see less variation in between caps. So if that means in the case of seam tape where all the caps in China that I found had nice flat seam tape that was not causing me discomfort, geez, it would be nice if we could modernize the U.S. factory a little bit to prevent that from happening. So I'm not sure if it's that simple, but certainly it would be nice to get a more consistent, less variable product from New Era. These caps carry the same price, so it would be nice to get the same product at the same price from them. So anyways, I really appreciate you watching, and that's it for now. We'll see you next time.